Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Skerry and I manage the Settlement and Community Services Division at Advanced Diversity Services, also known as ADS. ADS is a not-for-profit community organisation which has been providing support services to culturally and linguistically diverse Community 81. Its focus is on supporting recent arrivals, families, older people, women, youth, people with disabilities, and their carers living in St. George and the Sutherland Shire areas. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are all meeting today, noting that we are all meeting virtually today, and pay my respects to the elders past and present and emerging. I'm currently speaking to you on the land of the Visigal people of the Eora Nation. I wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to Australia. I wish to commend the organisers of this event today, Georges River Council, Refugee Advice and Casework Service, also known as RACS, and Advanced Diversity Services, ADS. This week we acknowledge Refugee Week. The week offers a chance to raise awareness of the plight of refugees around the world and of the efforts to protect their human rights. Today you will be hearing more about the life and stories of refugees. Following my introduction today, you'll be hearing a short message from the Mayor of Georges River Council. Following that, an introduction to Refugee Week from Hani from RACS. We will then hear from cinematographer and photographer Bebi Zekirovski and his wife, Liz Zekirovski, who will talk about their experience in Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh. We'll also be showing 3 short films with Sydney-based refugees sharing their stories. We'll then close with Q&A. We'll now cross over to Kevin Green, Mayor of Georges River Council, for a short message of welcome.
Community where we are a refugee welcome zone. In Georges River Council, I'm proud to say that in the last 5 years we've welcomed 100 refugees and their families to our community. And that's something that we as a local community can be proud of. We need to support refugees, we need to support their families. Today, of course, we see a different way of presenting Refugee Week because, as we know, COVID has changed the way we do things, and this will provide us with an opportunity to present this online seminar. Today, you'll hear from 3 local refugees. You'll hear their stories of resilience, their courage. You'll also hear from a local solicitor and a local filmmaker who is in fact just back from the largest refugee camp in the world. Council is proud to partner again this year with Advanced Diversity Services and also with Refugee Advice and Casework Services. These are important groups in our community. We thank them for their support, and most importantly, we say welcome to Refugee Week.
There's a bit of a lag on my side. I would now like to introduce Hani Gray, who is a Senior Solicitor at the Refugee, also known as RACS. Hani works in the Legal Help for Refugees Clinic team, which has assisted thousands of people who arrive by boat in Australia to apply for protection. She also coordinates a project that assists people who arrived by boat in Australia and were unable to lodge their protection visa applications before 1 October 2017 lodge or leave deadline, and is part of the legal team in RACS Women at Risk Service.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you to everyone who has contributed to organising this event, as well as everyone who is joining us via Facebook today. As Anthony has already touched on earlier, Refugee Week, which began on Sunday the 14th of June and runs until Saturday the 20th of June, is a chance for us both to raise awareness of and celebrate refugee communities in Australia and across the world. The theme for Refugee Week this year is the Year of Welcome, which I think is particularly important during these challenging times when refugees and people seeking asylum are facing additional hardships and need our support more than ever before. I will speak more on this later today. I want to particularly thank Hani, Ebad and Sajeda for so generously sharing their stories of seeking safety with us. I would also like to thank the cinematographers Bebi and Liz Zekirovski for documenting these stories. It's only once we begin to understand the challenges faced by people seeking asylum and refugees that we can in turn raise awareness about the issues that these communities face. I just have a few small housekeeping items to cover before we move on to viewing the first interview with Hani. There is a comments box for those of you who may have questions, and I encourage you to please add these questions as the event continues this afternoon. There is a dedicated Q&A session later today where myself, Bebi and Liz will be answering some of these audience questions. If anyone is having technical difficulties and can't view the stream on Facebook, please add a comment and we will try and sort that out. Lastly, this event is being recorded and the recording will become available for those who can't attend the session today. I'd now like to introduce Hani, whose interview we are all about to watch. Hani is from Somalia and arrived in Australia 6 years ago. Hani is a journalism student and an avid writer. Her book of poetry and prose, I Will Rise, was published in 2016. Hani speaks in this interview about her long and challenging journey to seek safety in Australia and her hope for a better future for refugees and people seeking asylum.
My name is Hani. I'm from Somalia. I came to Australia 6 years ago, and most of those years I lived in Sydney, which I enjoy a lot. After 8 days on the boat journey, we finally arrived Christmas Island, where I called home. Life in Christmas Island was a mixed emotions. Sometimes it was so great that you could forget your own past and enjoy what you got. And sometimes it was fence full of tears. But after all, I finally reached my destination, Sydney, where I found home, family and friends. Life was challenging, but it was like a rocky road, you know? You keep driving, like, you know, you can't stop on a road because it's so gravy, you know, you have to keep going. And I guess, like, I couldn't do that without the people in my life, like, you know, the people that I met in my new home. And yeah, and, you know, and writing that, you know, I write a lot about these things, and that makes me happier even on the darkest moments. I can still look back at my time in Christmas Island and be like, okay, actually you were in Christmas Island and there was people out there who look out for you, especially, like, you know, RACS and Sarah, who literally fight for me most of the time. And in Somali we say "Gacma wada jir bay wax ku gooyaan," which means, like, you can't do things with one hand. You sometimes need both of them. Every journey, it was rocky, but finally there was an end. And along that, I didn't feel I was doing a lot alone. There was, you know, the people that I worked for, there's, like, you know, people who support me, my community, the neighborhood. They're, like, you know, the most amazing thing happened to me is to be able, you know, to come to a new country, to start all over again. I think one thing that makes me proud the most is like be able to make my dream come true of what I really wanted in life, which is education, which is to be able to have a career that I can tell stories that have been unheard, but I can say like with proud and with smile, that dream, you know, it's on its way to come true. Journalism is one thing that I dreamed of since I was young, and I remember like when I was young I used to take water bottle and pretend to report from Baghdad. But now, like, you know, like looking back and I'm like, why did I really wanted to go to Baghdad? Like, and that time Baghdad was pretty on fire, like, you know, so does Somalia and other parts of the world. I do think journalism, it's my hope, you know, it gives me, I guess, inner life. I think like sometimes people like me, it's really hard to plan the future, while the future is uncertainty. Like, you know, when you're temporary, like you can't plan more, but you can hope for more. Like, you know, you can live in hope. As Maya Angelou said, you know, I still rise. You know, people will rise, it doesn't matter whatever happens. There's always hope in the horizon. I think the way people can help people who are from refugee background, or people like, you know, who seek asylum, like, you know, I guess the best way you can help someone is to listen. People, in order to be, I guess, felt for someone, they like to listen the tragic part of the story. You know, life, it's both, like, you know, and I think like the most important thing is to acknowledge both part of the life, like, you know, the past that was tragic, and, you know, and most of us, like, we're glad that we made it. We're glad that we can call this place, Australia, a new home. The world is full of hope, and it's full of obstacles. It's full of great things. It's full of moments that you question exactly why. And there's moments that you forget exactly why you question the whole world. But it's still a beautiful place, and with kindness, we can all live in harmony. But always remember like who you are, where you come from, and what you exactly want to contribute to the world. Let's be hopeful for a better world that include all humankinds.
Thank you so much, Hani. I know that you may be watching today. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone watching when I say how inspired I am listening to your story. And RACS is so proud to have supported you in your journey. I would now like to introduce Bebi and Liz Zekirovski. Bebi Zekirovski is a cinematographer who has been working in the film industry for more than 15 years. Bebi has been recognised for his work in film with a number of awards, and his films have been screened at film festivals across the world. Liz Zekirovski has been working in the film industry for several years now, currently as a camera assistant and producer for projects both in Australia and overseas. Bebi and Liz recently spent some time in a Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh. And while they were there, they spoke to a number of refugees, particularly women who have fled violence in Myanmar. Bebi and Liz have also spent a considerable amount of time documenting the stories of Hani, Ebad and Sajeda, which we are fortunate enough to be hearing today. Over to you, Bebi and Liz.
Firstly, I would like to thank you guys for having us on this panel. And I would like to wish a good afternoon to everyone watching on Facebook.
Hi everyone, thanks for participating in Refugee Week this year. Obviously through everything, it's a virtual experience this year. But yeah, as Hannah said, we had a chance last year in November to go visit Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh. And to say the least, it was probably a very different experience. It was pretty much life-changing what you see there, how they live, and when they tell you stories of why they fled. But overall, we found them to be pretty friendly as well. Glad to be where they were, like a bit of a mixed emotion. But it was definitely different.
Yeah, so like Hannah said before, so I worked around the world a little bit, and when I got this offer to work in Bangladesh, I was overexcited at the first, and then when I researched a bit more the stories, sort of I said, oh, wait a second, I got a bit, not scared, but sort of I questioned it. But the passion, because I really wanted to work with refugees for the last few years, I said, this is probably the biggest you can get. There's nothing bigger than this. So this is the biggest refugee camp in the world. So, and I have opportunity to go in and film some stories and tell some stories around the world. So I said, this is a great opportunity. So November last year, we ended up in Bangladesh and didn't know what to expect. So it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. You don't know what to expect, actually. We arrived in Bangladesh, then we got with the Danish Refugee Council, who was actually, we were working for. They took us the next day, we got the permissions, and when we went the day after the refugee camp, that was mind-changing. When I say mind-changing, it was really mind-changing. So we're living at the same time, just like 1,000 kilometers away, but the conditions that we live and they live are like centuries away apart of each other. The first 3 days, I was shocked, still in shock the first 3 days, and didn't know, still I was like, is this for real? But after that, you get used to it. So like I told every friend of mine and every colleague that we spoke, the brain is such a powerful tool. 3 days later, everything becomes reality and you accept it as it is, and it doesn't bother anymore. So, and then when I actually opened a bit more and started working closer with these people, which are wonderful people, they were so friendly.
Very helpful.
Very helpful, very friendly. Yeah, it was a great experience. I'm so glad I did it. I wouldn't change it for nothing. It was a great opportunity to meet people and to hear their stories. Some of the stories were very sad and like tragic, but with some people they were still very positive. They live with below basics, but they were so positive, and that made me think a lot. Yeah.
We're still actually friends with some of them to this day. We communicate through WhatsApp. They send us photos, and they ask you how you're going. So it was good. Made new friends, but yeah, it was definitely an experience.
To make it more interesting, we actually got caught by a huge cyclone while we were filming. While we were in the camps, we got caught by that cyclone, and I'm glad we were there. We actually saw what's happening. So let's say when cyclone is about to hit, I don't know, the Western countries, or Australia or something, that all this preparation and everything. And over there, they had a bit of preparation, but what shocked me the most was that while the cyclone was passing, these people, like, they were not scared of it. They were just walking, and yeah, it was pouring, raining, and we were hiding like under the tents and not to get wet. And I'm trying to film with my camera, but these people are walking,
Carry on
with the everyday life, and that amazed me. That really, really amazed me. It was great. I mean, first of all, being there, seeing that, and then this natural disaster showed me how strong they mentally are. They were very strong, and they yeah, they're tough. I think the life made them to be tough, and the conditions where they live, but so positive and very good people, very friendly, very good people. And we had a great experience. We were there for 7-8 days. And like Liz said, we're still communicating with them on WhatsApp. They're still sending me photos and still chatting and asking how they're going with this COVID-19 virus. And yeah, it was great. Like I said before, I wouldn't change it for nothing. I'm so glad I did it. And I'm so thankful that I met these people. And I have so much more respect now, because being there, hearing the stories firsthand, it's different when you actually get the information from media, or you read, or on Facebook, or being there and experience that from first hand. It reacts differently to you than watching the news and reading the news on Facebook or newspapers. So I've got a few photos that I've got some stories behind them. So if we can see, all right, so actually this is the story. Okay, this is a school, a self-made school. The refugees made this room as a school for their kids. And this is the beginning of the day. This is before the cyclone.
This is the day of the cyclone.
Yeah, this is the day of the cyclone. In the morning. This is just once they drop us with the van, and I just saw this singing. We heard this singing, like, oh, what's this? And then I went. As you can see, the photo is taken outside the window, so through the window. I hear these kids singing in English. So usually in our schools, kids usually sing songs about good things, about happy stuff. And when I went closer to see what's happening in there, we can listen to these kids like singing in English, how hungry and how tired they are in English. And that shocked me. That was like, I can't explain, like thinking, oh my God, these kids are singing how tired and hungry they are while they're at school, and that's a school song. So this is the moment when I took the photo, and you can see actually the face expression of that girl, how passionate, how real is that. This is not a scripted movie. This is a documentary photo. So it's been taken. They don't know that I was taking a photo from outside in this moment. After that, we went in and we introduced ourselves and filmed a little bit with them and took more photos. But this photo is before we actually entered that school, and it's one of the most probably powerful photos that I took.
I think because you can also see all the emotion in her face, like just her expressions as well, which just makes it more powerful as well.
Yeah. So okay, let's move to the other photo. Oh, there we go. I mean, this photo doesn't need much of explanation, I think. This is while we're walking, the same day. We're walking, and they had a very hot, dry weather for weeks before the cyclone hit. And there we go, the cyclone hit. And I think this age kids in our community will be hidden at home, and they're not going to be allowed to be outside. But look at this kid. He's drinking water from the drips of the raindrops. He's outside and by himself. It's pouring raining. It's windy. It's pouring raining. We can hardly walk and stay outside, but this kid is just calmly sitting and collecting raindrops and drinking them. I mean, like you can see the photo and doesn't need much explanation. It's such a powerful photo. Yeah, we can move to the next one. Okay, so this photo is taken from the very top, very high hill, where you can oversee nearly the whole camp. And this is a part of the river that goes around the camp.
Yeah, it goes through the camp.
And that river is so contaminated that they told us even if we go there and put a step in there, we'll get infection. God forbid if we drink from that, we're going to get very, very ill. But look at them. They're playing inside that water. They were swimming. They were playing. I was there for for 20 minutes, half an hour, trying to film, and
we were waiting for the rain to stop. And this is the view that we had from that point of the refugee camp.
These kids, they didn't care. They were just enjoying the water with the ball. And after that, I met some of the kids, and it's actually young men. We were walking. He was helping us with the gear, and that was something very strange that he said to me that actually I had to ask him to repeat that again. He said, "We just like to have some fun. If you give us a soccer ball, we're not going to get married so young." I couldn't process that, like what he said. And I have to re-ask him again. I said, "Sorry, can you repeat again?" He goes, "Yeah, if we have a soccer ball, we have fun. We have something to do, so we don't have to get married so early." So that was for me something that for the next 10 minutes, I was just thinking, whoa, what was that? It was a shock. So one of those moments. Okay, so we can move to the next photo. There we go, back to the cyclone day. So this is when the cyclone was just beginning, and it's pouring raining, and it's just becoming windy. But look at this kid, he's just walking so calmly, like it's nothing. And we're trying to hide under these tents, and I'm thinking, oh, everyone's going to disappear now, and how they're going to survive this. But no, look at, they're enjoying the rain, they're walking like it's nothing. They continued the whole day, through the whole day, they continued with the normal day activities. The only thing they were scared, landslides.
Yeah, they were scared of a lot of landslides because it's all pretty much mud and dirt. And because of all the heavy rain, that's the one thing they were really concerned about, all the mudslides. They didn't want to lose their homes. Yeah,
luckily there was nothing. The next day we went in the early morning, so again, got ready, and they said it might be some not very good images when you go there. You might see some landslides and hurt people, and God forbid any deaths. But we didn't have that experience. Thank God we didn't have that experience. When we went, there was a little bit of a landslides, but nothing major. Few little damages. So lucky for them, they went through the cyclone.
They got off it easily. Yeah.
Okay, so we can move to the next photo. There we go. So this young man is carrying water for his family, and it's not just from there to there. He went probably over 700-800 steps up and down. I would say maybe 2-3 Ks at least. And the refugee camp is on hills, and going down from one camp to another, you have to go all the way down, which is like 300-400 steps, and then you have to go 300-400 steps up again, and depends which camp you are, and that's about 12 liters. And that's very heavy. These kids, they have to do this on a regular basis to provide their families with water. So this is their everyday life. This is what they have to do to have the very basics,
things that we take for granted. You just turn on the tap and you got your clean water pretty much. They've got to go and they've got to pump it out of the ground and walk kilometers to get it and then come back home.
And they're not complaining. Yeah, very, very positive, very powerful people. All right, and the next one. This photo is, I took this photo while we were driving. Actually, it's taken from a car, the van that was taking us on the way to the camps. So this is just driving along the camps. And I saw this, and it was, for me, this is the moment of, I said, look at this. She's so elegant, and she's in mud. If you see everything around her, it's so rusty and rough, but she's so elegant. And the way she was walking, she was so elegant, the way she's dressed and the pink color, and it's such a big contrast behind, look, it's all rusty and dirty and dirt and mud and everything, but she is in a pink color and nicely dressed, and the way she was walking, that took my eye, and I just took the camera and took the photo while we were driving. So it's one of those moments that I'll never forget.
I think a lot of the women did take pride in the way they looked, even though the surroundings weren't the best that they obviously want. They had, you know, matching scarves with, I don't know, matching dresses, or it didn't really matter, but they tried still to, you know, feel good and look good. And this lady too, with a pink umbrella and her, you know, pink cardigan and the top of her scarf. And plus she's pregnant. So she's just walking elegantly too, just like taking her time.
That was a great moment, very great moment. So yeah, so I hope I just brought you a bit of a picture of what happened to our journey in Bangladesh. And yeah, I think we should all support them and try to help as much as we can, because it's not easy to be a refugee.
I think too, just quickly before we go, the journey that they went through to get from Burma to the refugee camp makes them more resilient and just like mentally stronger, because they're happy to have what they have now and be away from the troubles that they had where they came from. And then being a refugee as well here makes them much more, how do I say, they'd like to pursue it and they want to finish their job and want to get things done because of the journey that they've been through, which not a lot of us, or any of us, I think, can relate to. So I think that's what also just makes them a lot more resilient.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Bebi and Liz, for sharing those insights about your experiences. I'm unsurprised to hear about how resilient and strong everyone at the camp is and was when you were there. I know this is certainly our experience at RACS on a daily basis, talking to the people that we support. I'll give audience members a chance now to add any questions that they might have for Bebi and Liz in the comments section. In the meantime, I might ask my own question to you, Bebi and Liz. You mentioned that you're still friends with some of the people at the camp today and in contact with them. Have you heard anything about the current situation there in the aftermath of the cyclone and just in terms of COVID-19?
Yeah, we just I was messaging one of the guys that I met there while this COVID was big in the peak, and they said they had a few people that were diagnosed, and just recently they told me that they were delivered masks, about 14,000 masks in the camp. But yeah, they were scared actually. Yeah, he said it's scary because they didn't know what to expect, and the conditions over there, it's not like being in Sydney. So yeah, they were scared, and they said there were few diagnosed, and yeah, he said that they just delivered masks. The last information I got from them is they got masks, about 14,000 or something a few days ago.
I think you also sent some photos in the last cyclone they just had recently.
Yeah, they had a cyclone. Yeah, you showed me some more photos
They
and
sent
the
us
landslides.
some photos,
and
Yeah, I'm sure it would be completely terrifying, really, to be experiencing what's going on at the moment at the camp. Thank you for sharing that. Do you think you'll go back to Bangladesh again anytime soon to do more, to talk to more people or do any more filming or anything?
If I had a chance, to be honest, with no thinking at all, I would just go, because the first time was a bit sort of, I was overexcited in the beginning when I got the offer. Then as the time was coming closer and closer, then I got a bit nervous. I was very nervous, if I'm honest. I was very nervous even that when we landed there, when we went, I didn't know what to expect. But yeah, you get comfortable after that when you saw that the people are very nice, very helpful, and it was very positive So oh yeah, definitely. If I had a chance, I would go again.
I think too, because we had, I don't know, for lack of a better phrase, we had a good experience, even though, you know, they're not experiencing the best times, but they were very friendly to us, and yeah, we'll probably go back again.
That's great to hear. Thank you again to both of you, and thanks to the audience as well. I might give you all a bit of an introduction to the next interview we're about to hear. This is with Ebad. Ebad arrived in Australia from Afghanistan in 2013. Whilst we are here today to celebrate the refugee community, which is such an important part of Refugee Week, we are also here to acknowledge their strength and resilience, as we've already talked about today. Ebad is facing many challenges at the moment, which you will hear more about now.
My name is Ibadullah Haidari, and I'm from Afghanistan. I come to Australia and about my problem, and my family not safe, and I'm not safe in Afghanistan because I'm working with America Army in Afghanistan 2008 or 9 something. Yeah, I did work. Taliban, they sent a letter to my father about they asked for money, you know, like if you didn't support us, we kill you, you know, because you're working. And many times, like my father worried so much about the Taliban. They rang to my father changed the number, and some village people they give back to Taliban and my father number as well, you know, like. It's very hard for someone to work with America in Afghanistan, to stay in Afghanistan and family as well. If we move to Kabul city, and we can't live there as well because they follow us in order to find the people who working with America, with government, you know, like they follow people, they find to kill him, you know, like yeah, it's very hard to stay in Afghanistan. That's why I'm come to Australia. It's a nice country, Australia. The people is very nice people. Actually, the government is okay. And I'm coming 2013. The first time, yeah, I'm going to Christmas Island from Indonesia. From Christmas Island, they take me to Darwin. Stay in Darwin for 1 month, and they take me out from Darwin to Adelaide. Stay in Adelaide for 6 months. Yeah, like we feeling like. Very lonely the first time, you know, like it's very hard to different country, you know, like yeah, but it's okay now, yeah, it's fine, yeah. I'm thinking a lot about my family as well because yeah, they're not safe actually. Yeah, I didn't see my family for 9 years actually, and my father passed away, yeah, 2018, 11 September, and it's very hard actually. Yeah, it's very hard. Everyone the same, we the same, you guys the same, we same Haman, and if his family miss him, my family miss me too, you know. Like I see my friends, they married and they didn't see his wife for 9 years, for 10 years. This is not life actually. This is not. They have born kid and father didn't see the kid. Many times I did start good TAFE study, and I'm stop study. Something happened to my family, and my mind changed actually. It's because it's very hard, you know, because I didn't see my family for a long time, and that's why, yeah, like sometimes my mom crying as well, you know, we talk on the phone. If I have one wish, and this is my family, come to Australia. This is my first wish to my family come to Australia, and I'm not worried anymore because I'm to start my life, you know, and start my job, study, we hope to get visa, permanent visa. If someone need passport, they need passport, and we need help actually, like to be honest.
Another inspiring story of someone who has made a lot of sacrifices to seek safety in Australia. Thank you, Ebad, for sharing that. I'll just remind everyone watching that you are welcome to add any questions or comments that you might have in the comments section on Facebook before our Q&A coming up, and we'll try and answer all of those questions. As the audience will have seen from the interviews we've just watched, there are many challenges faced by people seeking asylum in Australia, in particular for those who arrived by boat in Australia. I'm going to briefly discuss some of these challenges and the work that RACS does to assist people seeking asylum and refugees in Australia. RACS is a specialist community legal centre which provides critical free legal assistance for financially disadvantaged and vulnerable people seeking asylum in Australia, including women who have experienced or fear family or gender-based violence, stateless people such as the Rohingya population, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, and children seeking protection who are without their parents. Thousands of asylum seekers in New South Wales rely on RACS to provide them with essential legal services to seek safety and to understand and comply with Australia's very complex legal regime. Last year, RACS provided legal support on over 6,000 occasions to refugees and people seeking asylum. As I mentioned before, and as is very clear from what we've seen and heard today, people seeking asylum in Australia face a number of significant challenges, but more so people who arrived by boat in Australia face these challenges. They are only able to apply for temporary protection visas. They cannot apply for permanent protection in Australia under the current laws. Having access to only temporary protection in Australia gives rise to a number of significant issues. People on temporary protection visas cannot sponsor their family to come to Australia. As you would have heard from the interviews so far today, many people seeking asylum in Australia have not seen their families for several years. And even those who hold temporary protection visas face great difficulty trying to see their families. The COVID-19 crisis obviously only makes this harder. People seeking asylum in Australia are faced with endless uncertainty and are in an indefinite state of limbo. Many have been waiting for several years to receive a protection visa interview. For instance, a colleague of mine was recently assisting a client, a Rohingya man who hadn't had a protection visa interview in over 7 years. His wife was pregnant when he left to seek safety in Australia, and he has never met his daughter. He doesn't have the ability to travel to a third country to see her unless found to be a refugee, which can't happen until he has had that interview. Even if people seeking asylum are granted a temporary protection visa, they have to reapply for protection before the expiry of their current temporary protection visa, which involves their protection claims being assessed again. So that means that at that stage, they could be refused protection even after previously being found to be refugees. Children born to stateless parents in Australia are sometimes given temporary visas, which means they cannot vote, and if wanting a university education, will be charged unattainable full international student fees. They will also have to reapply every few years for their visa, compounding their stress and insecurity. And currently, the government's COVID-19 support package, while commendable, has failed to include refugees and people seeking asylum, leaving many without an income, access to Medicare, access to Centrelink, and therefore facing potential destitution. RACS has a number of specific services and programs to assist people seeking asylum and refugees in New South Wales. Our Women at Risk project provides vital support to women who fear gender-based violence or other forms of serious harm in their home country, whether that be, for example, domestic or family violence or harm from others due to their status as a woman or perhaps as a woman who identifies as LGBTQIA+. RACS has another specific project dedicated to assisting children born to stateless parents in Australia who may be eligible for Australian citizenship. For example, as stateless people, we support many Rohingyan families in attempting to obtain Australian citizenship for their children born here. The RACS Legal Help for Refugees Clinic supports countless individuals and families who, as we've mentioned earlier, need to reapply every few years for temporary protection. We have assisted hundreds of people in this situation since the project began in 2018. In addition to our legal advice and casework, RACS is also involved in advocacy for policy that treats people with dignity and respect and calls for permanent protection for refugees. If you need to contact RACS for advice, or if you know someone that needs to contact RACS, you should be able to see our contact details on the stream at the moment. We are currently answering our phone lines every weekday from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. You can also email us. Our email is being shown at the moment. You can contact us via our website, or you can even just leave a voice message and we will return your call as soon as possible. The final interview that we will be watching today is with Sajeda, who is a Rohingyan refugee. We heard earlier from Liz and Bebi about some of the challenges that Rohingya people are facing in Bangladesh at this moment. Sajeda has achieved a lot since being in Australia and now wants to help Rohingyan women just like her.
My name is Sajeda. I'm from original Burma. Burma is for Rohingyan. Burma Rohingyan is they are living. My suburb is the Mondo near the Bangladesh, and I'm now living in Australia. In 2013, I've come to Australia refugee. I don't feel never ever safe. My back home. I'm feeling my present now. I feel I'm safe in Australia. I'm happy to. I'm lucky person. 2020, I meet my mom. And I meet my mom because my visa is the temporary protected TVV visa. I can't go easily. The new grandchildren, she see that she's very happy. I'm come back 2nd February. I don't live longer because the coronavirus happening very hard for this refugee. Many second languages, very confusing, very worried, very stressed because everything online. This 2020 is very, very hard, big challenges for refugee and everyone I know. I have daughter year 12. She finished this year, and how very struggle and very hard. 2 months, 3 months study at home school, because I have 6 kids. Not easy to study my daughter, and she is the future is the. Future is the big barrier, is the visa. I focused on my future, my community, know myself. I'm helping my community women get ready to everything, enjoy everything. Because inside the Burma, you're living inside the Australia, very nice country. You have the many options, supporting many organizations, many things support. I'm working school, learning support officer. And Rohingyan community I'm supporting, other community also supporting. I focus the women and children supporting to both. Like it's the part of them is the community activity. I'm also applying my project, the community hub school, Handen Park Public School. All of the women can study easily for enjoying an easy life. Easily is the study for English and working skill and the technology skill. It's the easy because they drop children and go to class and pick up and go to happy, go home. This is my hope, my future. I received a humanity award for STARS. And 2019 Refugee Week last year, Community Leadership Award, Ministry Assist, federal government give it to me, that one. I am very ready to for my Rohingya women. This is my hope. This is my goal. Rohingya Women's Organization. I give the message all the world. Please help Bangladesh Rohingya refugee. Million people there, long times not have safe home. Never ever anyone know safe there. Please help the safe home solution.
Thank you, Sajeda, for sharing your story with us. We now have about 15 minutes or so to answer some questions from the audience, and they have started to come in, so thank you very much. Earlier, we had a question about the practical ways that people can support refugee communities in Australia, so I might start by just answering that question for everyone. It is a great question, and I'll explain now a few key ways that you can provide support. Firstly, you will have already heard what refugees living in Australia think from the interviews that we have seen today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the event, we can really only begin to raise awareness in our local communities and the wider Australian community about the challenges faced by refugees and people seeking asylum after we ourselves have begun to understand the nature of these challenges. Listening to people with lived experience, such as Hani, Ebad and Sajeda, and what they have to say about the changes that need to happen in Australia is of utmost importance. In addition to that, you can sign our petition on the RACS website, www.racs.org.au. Refugees and people seeking asylum are some of the most vulnerable in our communities, and the COVID-19 crisis is really impacting them greatly, as I've outlined earlier. By signing this petition, you are calling for Treasurer Josh Frydenberg and the Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Anne Ruston, to ensure all people in Australia have access to critical financial support at this time of crisis. You can make a donation to RACS via our website to support us in our vital work providing free legal advice to refugees and people seeking asylum. Just like you are doing today, you can continue to celebrate refugees and people seeking asylum by sharing positive stories and helping to raise awareness, whether that's in conversation with friends and family, on social media, through your workplace, or any other channels. I really can't emphasize enough the importance of having conversations with people about what you have learned today and what you may already know about the challenges faced by refugees and people seeking asylum in Australia and across the world. Sometimes a conversation is enough to change a person's mind on this issue, and that can lead to even bigger and more important changes, both in Australia and internationally. Now, we've had a question from the audience about whether RACS helps people in detention. And what their situation is at the moment. That's another great question, thank you. Yes, we do provide ongoing legal support to a number of people in immigration detention. We have worked with people who have spent time in offshore detention, as well as in onshore detention centres and community detention. And we've been doing this work for a number of years now. At the moment, obviously, people in detention centres are at an increased risk due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and RACS are advocating for the release of these people from detention where possible. We've had a question about whether refugees holding temporary visas can access COVID-19 support and whether they have permission to work. Thank you, that's another good question. I talked earlier about the fact that people seeking asylum who hold either bridging visas or refugees who hold temporary protection visas, they cannot access the current COVID-19 support available, which we're trying to change at the moment. Work rights is a separate issue, and that really depends on what visa you hold. Unfortunately, some people seeking asylum who hold bridging visas do not have work rights, and therefore they actually don't have access to Medicare. This is obviously a problem generally, but even more so in the current context of a global pandemic. We have a question for Bebi and Liz now. Have you heard from those in the camps about whether they are able to stay connected to any family or even friends they may have in Australia? I guess particularly given what's happening at the moment.
At the time we were there, the mobile service was very restricted in the camp, so
the internet service it was not
very great. So they had difficulties connecting with people around the world. So even for us, they gave us these old Nokia phones, which was, I think, it's not even 3G, it's a 2G network or something like that. Yeah, it was very bad. So, but they find their ways and they still get connected, but very hard, very hard. I know for a fact it was very hard to be connected with the rest of the world from that part of Bangladesh.
Thanks, Bebi and Liz. We've had another question. Sorry, we are trying to keep up with all the questions, and I apologise in advance if anyone doesn't have their question answered. We have had a question about the status of people who don't have temporary protection visas. So basically, anyone who arrives in Australia and is seeking protection applies for protection and is then holding a bridging visa until a decision is made on that protection visa. So I guess to answer that question in short, anyone who doesn't hold either a permanent or a temporary protection visa is a temporary resident of Australia holding a bridging visa. And while that does generally give that person the right to work and access to Medicare and sometimes the right to study, it is only a temporary transitory visa in a way. So that person, as we said before, really is in a situation of limbo and uncertainty. I'm just having a look at some other questions now. I've had a question about the Women at Risk project and whether it's running countrywide or in New South Wales only. At the moment, the RACS Women at Risk project is being run in New South Wales. We are a New South Wales-based service, although we do try and help where we can in areas where perhaps people don't have access to a free community legal centre that specialises in assisting refugees and asylum seekers. The project is fairly recently developed and started. We're responding to the COVID-19 pandemic essentially by trying to continue doing our work despite not being able to meet with women in person. Generally, we do have an outreach once a week, and at the moment we are trying to do all of that work over the phone. One of our senior solicitors, Isabel McGarity, is running that project and is continuing to do very essential work, even while unable to meet anyone in person. So we're really proud to be continuing with that project and helping women in need in New South Wales. I'm just going to have a look for any other questions. I'll probably be able to answer just one more. And then we'll have to wrap up as we are running out of time. Just a moment. There is a question for Hani about the support that helped her to start her studies, but I don't think she'll actually be able to actively answer that today, although it is a great question. Thank you to everyone, by the way, who's thanked us for running this event today. the last question I'll probably answer is, what are some of the stories you are hearing from people who have had their temporary visas expire and then they reapply? What kind of experience do they have doing this? That's a great question. To explain this in a really brief way, temporary protection visa holders need to apply before the expiry of their visa. And if they don't do that, they become unlawful and at risk of being detained and potentially deported to the country where they fear harm from. And keep in mind, these are people who have been found to be refugees. If they apply before the expiry of their temporary protection visa, that visa becomes indefinite. So they are still able to stay in Australia, and usually they can work and access Medicare while they're waiting on a decision on their new protection visa application. However, they have told us many stories of experiencing difficulties, for example, even renewing their Medicare access, having Centrelink payments cancelled because of the uncertain nature of their visa, and many other stories, including children not being able to enroll in school for new terms, and other issues like that. So certainly this process of people only holding temporary protection visas and having to reapply every few years has already brought up a number of challenges, without even going into the fact that their protection claims have to be reassessed and they possibly have to go through an interview process again to have these claims assessed. I think I do have to leave it there in terms of answering questions. So I'm sorry for anyone who missed out on having their question answered. But I think for now I might see, unless Bebi and Liz wanted to make any further comments, I think we'll wrap it up.
We just want to thank everyone for watching and for the questions asked. Yeah, just going to say that there's a few questions here if I'm going to have an exhibition. Yes, I mean, I'm planning some exhibitions. Right now I'm working on different plans. Once I book something for Sydney, they'll be definitely promoted and people will hear about it. So yeah, thanks again. Thank you to everyone for having us. And yeah, it's a very good cause, and yeah, respect refugees.
I just want to quickly say too, I think people in general take things for granted, and obviously, you know, the refugees are leaving their country for a reason. They want a better life, and they risk their life with whatever form of transport, with the boats, you know, trying to get to a country where they can have a better life, either for themselves or for their family. So I think we shouldn't be so quick to judge people on why they are refugees, because everyone has a story. And I think we should just take the time to listen to their story. And thanks for watching.
I agree. Thank you. And yeah, as we've all mentioned, it is so important to listen to the stories of people with lived experience, refugees and people seeking asylum here in Australia. I just want to mention finally, before we wrap up, that for anyone who didn't have their questions answered, RACS does have a number of fact sheets on our website that may answer a lot of the questions that you have. And we do also have an inquiry form. You can submit your questions and we can try and get back to you as soon as we can. You can also sign up to our mailing list for any updates, not just on the work we're doing, but on the situation generally for refugees and people seeking asylum in Australia. And you can also follow us on Facebook for those same updates and to hear more stories from people with refugee backgrounds. Great, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much to everyone at Advanced Diversity Services and St. George's River Council for organising this event. Thank you to Bebi and Liz, and of course, thank you to those who have shared their stories with us this afternoon.